What's going on, y'all? Blue Falcon here, coming to you with lesson number 2 of this video series. All right, so hey, I know this is another video, but trust me, I filmed this the same day, and I didn't wear the same shirt the next day. All right, trust me. Nah, I'm joking, but on a serious note, last time we discussed what is music. All right, so just a quick overview. We found out that music is none other than the study of sound in relation to melody, harmony, and rhythm. All right, now we're gonna fast forward a bit because, as I promised, we are going to focus on this component today. All right, we're going to discuss melody. Now, melody, as we discovered in the last video, is playing one note after the other. It's literally that simple. Now, why are we going to start here? The reason why we're going to start here is because melody essentially is the foundation of how we build scales. Now, you probably have heard the word scales before, and if anybody have met me in person, you know that I probably talk about scales till you get blue in the face. Like, oh man, he's always talking about scales. He's always talking about scales. All right. And the best analogy I can give you is like, it's like a language, right? Music is literally, you could look up any of the top professional musicians out there and they will literally say the same thing. Music is literally a language. All right, guys? And what you need to understand is that the same way in real life, or I won't even say real life because music is part of real life, but like the same way you went to school and you were hooked on phonics, right? And you had to write a bunch of times, and you had to keep writing A, and you had to keep writing B, and you had to do that, right, until you were blue in the face. And then when you learn how to write your letters, the next thing is that they taught you how to write words, right? And then you started writing words, and you wrote the same word over and over. And you learn how to write, and then you start learning how to speak, and then you learn how to construct sentences. It's literally the same thing. Think of it as one note, one after the other. Right? One note after the other, right? It's that simple. All right? And then eventually you will start to write words. Right? Whatever you want to play. But the point being is that I could not have done this, right, if I did not first learn how to write words. You know what I'm saying? I could not have made sentences or a paragraph or whatever unless I had learned the fundamentals, the phonics, right, of music. So that's where your scales come in. Okay? So we're going to start with the scale. Now, the scales, I'm not the best singer in the world, all right? But let me just tell you one thing. You see, all of us, I don't care who you are, if you're trying to learn music, I don't care if you're the drummer, I don't care if you play the triangle, I don't care what part of music you're trying to learn, we all gonna have to learn how to sing, all right? You're just gonna have to get out of your comfort zone. Please endure me, right, as I sing. But scales, you know, again, when people were constructing music, right, the science of music, right, the study of sound, they didn't just come up with random, you know, notes, all right? These are notes that have a formula. They have a particular formula. In other words, that is not just happenstance. When you learn this formula, you're going to always be able to play the scale no matter what note you start from, all right? And that's a little bit further down the line, but you'll know that there are essentially 12 unique major scales. What is the formula, right? So the formula for a major scale, okay? So, and a scale is a unique series of notes, okay? Unique series of notes. All right. Major scale, 7-note scale. All right, and it follows this formula: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You're probably wondering to yourself, like, what in the world does BlueFalcon mean by that? Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So this is where, in order for us to go get more understanding, we need to understand this concept, which is interval. So the interval is the distance between two notes. Distance between two notes. All right? And essentially there are two main intervals. So the first interval, which is the whole, right, contains two half steps. That's pretty much it. While a half interval, as you probably could suggest, right, is math, right? The half of 2 will be 1. All right, so it's just 1/2 step. Okay? Now, this is what's interesting about this. Please put this down. All right. Now, in order for us to understand this, we are going to have to understand your instrument. Now, this, for those of you who are starting out, I don't care what instrument you're trying to learn. This is just my particular recommendation. And parents, I want you to hear this out too. If you're watching this with your children, please invest in a keyboard. If the keyboard, piano, whatever, if that's not their main instrument, it doesn't have to be expensive. All right, it does not have to be expensive, but they need to learn theory, and the best way to learn theory is on the piano. All right, and the reason why I'm saying this is because, again, you know, I paid thousands of dollars to go to music school, right? And trust me when I tell you this is not a lie. Every musician took piano 101, even the drummer, right? Even the drummer took piano 101. The musician that you probably thought to yourself would never even touch the keyboard, probably doesn't even have a great understanding, which that's not good, by the way, for you drummers. I really do recommend that you actually learn, you know, melody and harmony, just as your other musicians. But anyway, what's the point? Every musician took piano 101 because they needed to learn some basic theory, just in case one day you may want to compose, right? And I'm telling you, it might be, oh boy, you born me. It's gonna be worth it, all right? So invest in just a little keyboard, you guys, all right? So here's what I want you to understand. In order for us to understand whole steps and half steps, the piano is by far the best way to learn it because it is so visual. Like me, you know, I play the saxophone, and it is physically impossible, right? As I'm playing the saxophone, it is physically impossible for my eyes to pop out of my head and look at the notes that I'm playing, right? It is physically impossible, okay? So the saxophone is not the best way to learn those intervals. Same thing with the guitar. I mean, you could learn it, right? As you move on each fret, that is essentially a half step. But it is, again, is not, it may be very complicated to understand whole step and half steps using guitar. The best way to learn it is the piano. So this is actually gonna be my first homework for all of you, all right? The first homework that I'm gonna give you is that I want you to be able to learn how to draw a piano without looking at a piano, all right? So I'm gonna put it right here, all right? Please, I want you to learn how to draw about 2 octaves, which we're going to get into. I know I'm throwing a lot of terminology out there. It's all going to start to make sense. But I want you to learn how to draw a piano without being able to look at a piano. And the reason why that's important is because if you can do that, that means essentially you have locked in the various steps of the keyboard. All right. So let's actually get into drawing it. So let's actually get into drawing a keyboard. So again, this is going to be your first lesson. All right. So if you have analyzed the keyboard, you'll see that the keyboard consists of it has a pattern, okay? And what's the pattern? You'll see that it has a set of 2 black keys, right? 1, 2, one, 2, and you'll notice that there's like a gap, right? You see how there's a gap, and then you start to see there's 3 black keys, 1, 2, 3, and then there's a gap, and then 1, 2 again, gap, 1, 2, 3, and that pattern continues over and over and over and over. All right. So the best way to learn how to draw a piano is to first start off with 2 black keys, right? We're gonna draw 2 black keys, and you can color it in however way you wish. All right, and then we're gonna start with 3 black keys. And notice in between the 2 black keys, the spacing that I have between these 2 versus the ending of the 2 black keys and the beginning of the 3 black keys, notice that gap is a lot bigger, all right? And that's done for a reason. And I color it in, all right? So now, here's what I want you to understand. If we analyze the piano carefully, you'll see that to the left of the 2 black keys, you could draw this long line, right? And you will see that that is essentially the key C, all right? So that is the key C. And I'm gonna draw a line in the middle of the first, in the set of 2 black keys, in the middle of the first black key, I'm gonna draw a line that goes all the way down, and I'm gonna connect it to this line, all right? Now in the middle of the second, right, black key, I'm gonna draw another line, and I'm gonna connect it, all right? Now in the middle of these 2 black keys, right, the second of the first 2 black keys, and then the first of the 3 black keys, right in the middle, I'm gonna draw a long line, and I'm gonna connect it. Now in the middle of this first black key, I'm gonna draw a line. Notice I'm doing all this, I'm not looking at the keyboard, right? In the middle of the second of the 3 black keys, right in the middle, you're gonna draw another line, and then you're gonna connect it. In the middle of the 3rd black key, you're gonna draw a line, you're gonna connect it. And then right here, where you see this empty space, you draw this long line that goes down, and then you're gonna connect it. And that's essentially all the unique 7 keys. All right, and within this, I literally have all the keys that you're ever gonna learn. Remember, I said there were 12 distinct keys, right? So let's count them together, right? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's all the 12 keys. And what you're gonna find out is that the pattern just continues over and over and over. So I'm gonna avoid boring you. But pretty much in order to do it, I'm gonna repeat the same pattern, all right? 2 black keys, make a space, then I'm gonna draw 3 black keys. Notice the 3 black keys, notice all the black keys are shorter than the white keys, all right? And then again, if you wanna know how I'm doing this so fast, pretty much rewatch when I started teaching about drawing the piano. But that's pretty much it. And right there, this is the homework that I want you to do, all right? I want you to be able to draw 2 octaves. Now let's go over what's an octave, okay? So you'll see that now we're gonna, please pay attention, all right? Because this is pretty dense. but it's all gonna make sense. To the left, right? To the left of the first two black keys, that is the letter C. All right. Now in the middle of the two black keys, you have D. To the right of the two black keys, you have E. Now the next, after E, you'll see that there's another white key. That is F. All right. Now and F is also the left of the three black keys. All right. Now, in between the first and the second of the three black keys is G. In between the second and third of the three black keys, you have A. To the right of the three black keys, you have B. This is all the unique 7 white keys. And what you start to notice that after B, the pattern continues. Oh, okay, we are now back at the left of the two black keys. So this will be C, and I'm not gonna keep going over and over again, it repeats. So it's gonna be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, right? And pretty much it's just like your alphabets, right? But you'll notice that it goes from A and it finishes at G. So you're probably wondering, why do we start at C? I'm going to get to that in another lesson, all right? We're not going to get there yet, but there is a reason why we start at C. And C, for the most part, is the most basic scale that does not contain sharps or flats. Again, we're going to go deeper into that in another lesson. But for today, I just want you to understand all the 7 unique black keys. All the 7 unique notes that exist from C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And that the pattern just keeps repeating, right? Now, you probably heard me say, I want you to draw 2 octaves. Now, the reason why I say that is because there are 7 notes. By the time we reach to the 8th, and let's count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And notice by the time you reach to the 8th, it repeats. So an octave, all octaves is the same 2 notes. It's just an octave apart. So let's count it one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So from C to C, right? From C to C, that is an octave, right? And the sign you probably see there is an 8 AV. All right, that's the musical sign for octave. Okay, just in case for those of you who likes all this terminology, octave is spelled this way. All right, that's how it's spelled. So oct, you have the prefix oct, like octopus, that creature that has 8 arms, right? So that's what it pretty much is. Octave is in music 8, the span of 8 notes. And when you play it that way, you'll start to realize D to D is also 8. Let's count it. We start saying 1 at the note that we started at. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, look at that, 8. We're back at D. And the rest goes on. E to E, F to F, G to G, etc., right? So that is an octave. Homework number 1, I want you to be able to draw a piano by heart without looking at it. Now, why do I want you to draw a piano by heart? This is where you're going to start to understand a whole step and a half step, all right? So let's actually get into that. And so a whole step, first, before we understand the whole step, let's understand a half step. A half step is the shortest distance, all right, within, let me make it very clear, within Western music, all right, within Western music. When you study, Eastern music, there's places that have microtones, that gets a little bit more fancy. But for Western music, where we are, the shortest distance between 2 notes is a half step. So you'll notice that this note, the first black key, right, of the two black keys, that note is indented. All right, I know, just think about it. It's like an indent into C. That is because this note right here is actually called C sharp, or let me actually write it just a little bit. C sharp or D flat. All right. And that note is actually a half step away from C. In other words, C sharp is actually closer in relation to C than D is. All right. Now, a half step from C sharp or the D flat is D. All right, so I'm gonna say it one more time. All right, now if I was to play C, you'll see that, right? That's C. A half step from C would be C sharp, which is this note right here. Now, a half step from C sharp would be D. A half step from D would be D sharp. All right. Now, a half step from D sharp would be E. Now, notice between E and F, there are no black keys. All right. So the closest, the half step, the half step is the closest interval, right? So the closest interval between E and F would be just F, right? E, it goes to F. It's a half step away. All right. Now from F, a half step, you could kind of see the pattern. It'll go back to this, and you could probably guess that that would be called F sharp. All right, F sharp or G flat. Now, one thing I want you to bear in mind, you're probably wondering, like, how come it has two names? It has two names depending on the directionality in which you're approaching those notes, right? Again, we're gonna go into that, and depending on the scale that you're playing in, we're gonna go into that in another lesson. But I just want you to understand, all the notes that we're dealing with. So after we get to F sharp, a half step from F sharp, this is F sharp. A half step from F sharp would be G. We go back to that white key. Then after the white key, we go to the black key, right? That would be called G sharp or A flat. Now, I don't know if you probably noticed the pattern by now, but pretty much if the black key is to the right of the key, that's when it becomes a sharp. So because we were at G and the black key is to the right of G, that's why it's called G sharp. But it's that black key is also the left of A. And that's what I meant by the directionality. And this is why this is called A flat. Okay? So we start the A flat. Oh, excuse me. A flat. Now, if we go a half step up, we're going to go to A, right? And then from A, again, you can see that pattern is black, white, right? So A, we're going to go back to the black key. That's going to call A sharp or B flat. All right. Now from B flat, the next half step will be B. Right? And just as we had with E, between E and F, there was no black key, the same thing you can see between B and C. So you'll notice that between B and C, there's also no black key. So the shortest distance between those two is you just from B would just be C. And that completes the full octave. And it continues just like that. All right, you guys? So I'm gonna finish off this video by explaining what a whole step is. So if we learned all the half steps. And you'll notice this is what's called a chromatic scale. I'll play it for you guys, right? So chromatic scale is playing starting from whatever note, but we're gonna start from C since that's the first note that we know. We're gonna play only half steps. And you're gonna see that a chromatic scale, because again, a scale is a series of unique notes. All right, it's a series of unique notes. So you're gonna see that a chromatic scale is the only scale that sounds like this, all right? No other scale sounds like this. But you'll know that you're playing it right if your chromatic scale sounds like this. So I'm gonna start from C. And that is a chromatic scale, all right, going up. And you can play the same thing going down. And that's pretty much it, all right, guys? So that is a chromatic scale. Now that we understand half steps, we must understand what whole steps are. So a whole step, and I'm just gonna remove this so that we can get it more clear. A whole step, again, is 2 half steps. All right, so if we understand that basic pattern, and this is why, again, I suggested getting a piano. You could learn the same thing on a guitar and a saxophone, but it's gonna be a lot more, you're gonna have to internalize this knowledge, which, it is possible, but it's gonna be a lot more difficult. A piano is extremely visible, right? It's visual. So you can actually understand everything that I'm talking about a lot easier, all right? This is why I recommend buying a keyboard. But getting back to the point, a whole step is 2 half steps. So now that we know this basic pattern of going from black to white, or white to black, white to black, white to black, unless in the situation of going from E to F, because you'll see that there is no black key between them, and also from B to C, which also has no black key between them. For the exception of that, it's always gonna be that basic pattern, and that's a half step. So with that being said, keeping that in mind, let's actually get into what is a whole step. So if I was to start from C, a whole step away from C is 2 half steps. So we learned that from white to black, right? So white to black is a half step, and another half from that would be going from C sharp, right? We know that this is C sharp, would be C sharp to D, all right? Again, this is some basic math, but if this is a whole pie, right? We know that half, right? Basic math, right? Would just be half that pie. So therefore, in order to get a whole, we need both halves, right? It's the same concept, right? So you're gonna find out that your mathematics skills increases by learning music as well. But that's all it is. So from C to D is a whole step. All right. From D, let's find another whole step. We know that, oh, okay, there's a black key in between D and E, so that's a half step, right? To D sharp. And then from D sharp to E is another half step. 2 half steps give us a whole, so we know that from D to E is a whole step. All right. Here's where it gets interesting. So far we've been going pretty much we're playing all the white keys, right? So we would think to ourselves that from E to F, we're playing all the white keys. Shouldn't that be a whole step as well? Well, it's not. Because again, as we said before, there is no black key in between them. So believe it or not, E to F is actually a half step. But we need 2 half steps to make a whole. So from E to F is a half step. And then because there is a black key between F and G, we know that F sharp is actually another half step. So from E to F sharp, all right, is a whole step. Okay? So let's actually make it interesting. Now we leaving we leaving the white keys. Now we on F sharp. So because we on F sharp, what is a whole step from F sharp? Well, we know that a half step from black to white, black to white, black to white, right? So we would have to go from F sharp to G to get a half step. and then we got to go from G to, G sharp. Okay, so we're not only playing the white keys. So in other words, and the rest goes on and on, all right? I'll probably do one more with you because these are the most tricky ones for students to actually internalize. If we're playing starting from B, and I say find me a whole step, you notice that there is no black key between B and C, right? So because there's no half step, because there's no black key between B and C, C is actually a half step away from B. So that's one half step, and we need one more. Okay, now a half step from C, as we learned when we were learning the chromatic scale, it will be C sharp. So from B to C sharp is our whole step. All right, you guys. So I know that was throwing a lot to you. So this is my 2 homeworks for the day. All right, if you can, internalize this. 1, I'm going to erase all of this. And this is what I want you to do for me before you get to lesson 3. All right. The homework. The first thing I want you to do is draw a piano. All right. I want you to learn how to draw a piano without looking, okay, at a piano. Now, obviously, if you're first learning how to draw a piano, you gotta look at a piano to reference it. But at a certain point, I want you to understand how it's actually designed. Again, I've taught you that in this video. You can go back to it and reference it. Homework number 2 is I want you to know all your half and whole steps. All right? Meaning that if I was to give you a random note, would you be able to tell me what is a half step away and what's a whole step away? Example of that would be you come up to me, okay, BlueFalcon, give me a test. I'm gonna be like, okay, cool. We're gonna start at F sharp. Now, without looking at a piano, can you remember where F sharp is on the piano? Okay. Now, you should know where F sharp is in the piano. Why? Because you learned how to draw a piano. Right? So you see, there's a method to the madness, okay? So, so I'm going to give you F sharp, and you're going to think, this is you as the student. Okay, so F sharp, and I'm going to say, what's a half step away from F sharp? And you're going to have to be like, okay, that's when that visual piano in your mind is going to kick in. Okay, a half step from F sharp is, G. Beautiful. I'll give you another letter. What is shown? I want you to find me a whole step from A. You're gonna lock it in. Where's A on the piano? Okay, now what's a whole step? And again, knowing that piano in your mind is gonna help you, okay? So that's gonna be it for today's lesson. I know it was very lengthy, but believe it or not, we didn't even get to actually, actually playing any songs. But notice how much there is to just the music. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I'm BlueFalcon. If you enjoyed videos like this, please smash that like button, subscribe, comment down below. If there's anything that you need help with, please let me know. That's what I'm here for as your teacher. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to answer it down below, and I could even answer it probably in future videos. All right, so I could go give you kind of like a deeper look into that question. And also, please share. If you know anybody that wants to learn music, that's how you will be helping me out, by sharing this channel and sharing this video with your friends and loved ones. With that being said, BlueFalcon over and out. Jesus is King, y'all.
Game to win. Game hard.